Thank you for joining us on the Winning at Selling podcast. I'm Bill Helkamp of Reach Development Systems, and with me is Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute.
Knowledge has timing, and sometimes it's out of step. We may have heard the answer in the past, but didn't know the question until now. Now that the answer has been forgotten. Are you in a philosophical state of mind? Stay tuned to hear the answers and the questions together as Bill and I discuss questions from our listeners and other interesting ideas on episode 545 of the Winning at Selling podcast.
I have no idea what you're talking about. So
Well,
this has got to be very deeply philosophical.
Yeah, I was listening to Santana when I wrote that.
Oh, there
so
you go.
What
Okay,
I was thinking of too.
Little Oye Como Va, and now you're
exactly. We'll get into it a little bit later. But
maybe he'll speak a little Spanglish for us. So before we do that, I want to let you know if you were expecting Wendy Weiss as our guest this week. She had a cold, didn't feel real well, so we pushed her a few weeks out till we can get back to that. And whenever we have that situation, we drop in some questions from our listeners, and we answer those questions one-on-one with them, but we save those in case we have a show where we need to pull some topics up quick, and that's what we're doing this week. But we do have the book club, so we told you we wouldn't have the book club, but we're going to have the book club because we lost our guest for the week. So the Theory of Accountability, Part 4. Chapters 20, 21, 22, and 23. And we are really getting into the hard part now, Scott. It was added experience and mindset were the E and the M. And now we're on to the C and E equals MC squared, which is commitment. And that's where a lot of people fall down.
Exactly.
Right. I'm committed just as long as it doesn't get in my way.
Right. And I'm committed in thought and in word, but not in action. It's amazing how they all have to go together. And, the John Maxwell quote, I keep thinking about it, is that people judge us by our behaviors. We judge ourselves by our intentions. So how strong is our commitment to action? Because action creates a reputation. And that's why I love this part of the book.
Well, he talks about purposeful action, right? So we can't just be in action, but we have to do purposeful action, the right things. And then I like his repeatedly and relentlessly, meaning we can't stop. And he says the experience and mindset that we've talked about so far, they're useless without action. I remember a speaker I heard once, he said, I know a lot of people that have become good attitude bums. They know all the right things to say. They have a great attitude, but they never get anything accomplished. I had some people I was working with. We were kind of forming a little team. And these two people that I was working, lovely people, very smart, but they spent all their time working on their website. I said, why don't you make a couple of phone calls and get a couple of clients started, and then you'll figure out what your website should say based on that, rather than trying to think of everything everybody wants. Talk to some customers, some potential customers, and find out what they want. So get into action. Don't be a good attitude bum. And he shows the commitment matrix. Do you want to talk to that a little bit? I thought that was pretty good.
Sure. I mean, it's always interesting. There's so many speakers and authors that talk about quadrants, and it seems like we always want to get to the upper right quadrant.
There's always four of them. So it's not 27 quadrants.
Where we overlap in 3 areas or 4 areas, and now we've got the quadrants. It's the upper right quadrant. So we want zone 1 is the upper right quadrant, and this is the accountability zone. And the 2 other axes is result from top to bottom and effort from left to right.
It's easier if you get the book and read it than trying to have
that's true too.
But maybe we can put this on the show notes. Anyway, I liked zone 2. He called it flash in the pan. Which I thought was pretty good. It means you do just enough work to get something to happen, and then you quit doing the work. So you're not committed long term to doing the work, and then you get distracted. And I think that's a lot of people. They get excited, they do a couple of things, even if they work out, then they fall off the board.
Well, they put a high amount of effort into it for a very short period of time, and they end up hitting the jackpot, and they go, well, that was easy. Now I'm just going to follow the same system before, which is very little effort, and try to hit the jackpot again. I mean, it was a coincidence, maybe.
Yeah, well, they think that they don't need to do the work, and then they just don't get the results, and then they fall out of love with whatever they were doing. So, zone 3, he calls, that's in the bottom left quadrant, and he calls that learning the ropes. And I liked what he talked about here. He said, you can stay in the learning the ropes process forever. And I think that's where you have just kind of some effort, you're getting a few results, you're starting to learn, and you think the learning is what you needed to do, not the doing. So you never up your efforts enough to get things going. Both zone 2 and zone 3 have lack of effort, and therefore they don't get the results that they're looking for. Why don't you talk about zone 4? Because I've been there.
Right. Zone 4, lower right-hand corner, which is very high effort and low results, which is beating your head against the wall. And I think these are the folks that need to hear, work a little bit smarter, understand what the goals are, what their objectives are, focus on that, and measure your results. Because if you don't measure something, you can't manage it. And I think that's where a lot of sales teams kind of fall down, is that they're not measuring the behavior and the objectives, and they're concentrating too much on the outcome and the results. And you cannot control the outcome and the results without focusing on the behavior and the objectives.
Well, I think too that they may have the behavior right. They may even have the objectives right, but if they're talking to the wrong people, or if they're saying the wrong thing, so they're doing a lot of work, they're really out there churning, but they're not examining the mistakes and trying to overcome those mistakes. And I don't even want to use the word mistakes, but those wrong directions, right? We've talked about it a lot. If I'm talking to the wrong people who don't have the money to pay for what I have, or they really don't have the need for what I have, I'm going to bang my head against the wall a lot, because I'm going to be talking to the wrong people, or the people who aren't the decision makers. So what are you doing in zone 4 that you should be doing better? I think this is where coaching and training comes in, because you've got somebody who's doing a lot of effort. They're excited, but they're not going to stay excited long if they don't start to get some results.
Right. Exactly. Great quadrants and great visual, if you can imagine it based on our description, but also it's in the book and a good reinforcement to the other areas too.
So to close out this chapter, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but he says what we're swinging at must connect to our purpose, not violate the rights of others, and engages and inspires us to accelerate our actions in support of the experience we have chosen and the mindset we have embraced. And I think that's really crucial. That's why that's talking about quadrant 4, right? The banging your head against the wall, zone 4. Right. And that is that we're not doing something right. It's not connecting with us properly. And so that we're not getting the value out of it that we want. And then he calls this great thing the point of exponential returns. And that is so you talk, Scott, about somebody with that flash in the pan who gets some results right away and then stops doing what they're supposed to be doing. The other side of that is somebody who's doing things right, and then things start to happen. And what do? They put the hammer down, and they do more of it. One of my favorite stories is a missionary wakes up in the morning and she hears this banging. Bang, bang, kind of a metallic banging. And she walks up the hill to see what it is. And there's a huge boulder there, and a little withered man has a hammer, and he's banging on this rock. And she says, "What are you doing?" He says, I'm breaking this rock into little rubble, and I'm gonna pave this road up the hill with it. And she thinks he's kind of crazy, but she agrees and walks away. She hears that banging all morning. She decides to take him up some water and a little bit of lunch at lunchtime, and that rock is still there. And she thinks this guy is just wasting his time. He's just banging on this rock and nothing's going to happen. So about mid-afternoon, she doesn't hear any banging anymore. She wonders what's going on. So she goes up the hill to see what's going on. And this rock is all in little pieces on the ground. And he's shoveling it around. And she says, "What happened to the boulder? I came here at lunch and it was all together." He goes, "Every time I hit that rock, it made a little crack. You couldn't see them because they were inside the rock. But eventually there were so many cracks, the rock just couldn't hold together anymore. And now it's rubble." He said, "I'm going to do the same thing to that boulder and that boulder and that boulder as I go up the hill." And that's really what we need to think about in sales is there's a lot of times where you're banging on things and you don't see the results because it's happening elsewhere. And Scott, you and I have all had churn, and we've gotten sales from areas that we didn't even know the people, but they knew somebody who knew somebody, and we were out actively engaging with people, and a sale came out of nowhere. but it wasn't really out of nowhere. It was one of those hidden cracks
Right.
in the
Right.
rock that we just didn't see. So I
Yeah.
think that's the point of exponential returns, when everything happens at once, but we didn't see the results coming.
Right. Right. So true. Great example. Great story.
All right, let's go to chapter 21, exponential commitment. And he says, when you can stay in zone 1, everything is coming together. Experience, mindset, and commitment are all growing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the formula, E equals MC squared, that he's repeating in this chapter.
And that's the exponential commitment, right? It's C
Yeah.
squared. E equals
Mhm.
MC squared, not mindset squared, not experience squared. It's the energy that you can put in the commitment in the right place. And I like what he says. The opposite of fear is what you can get to. So all of
Wow.
us in sales have things that hold us back. We're kind of afraid of. Maybe we're afraid of talking to CEOs, somebody too high in the organization. Maybe we're afraid of talking to people who are a lot older than, more experienced than us. Maybe we're afraid of making phone calls to people we don't know. He says, if you can keep your commitment long enough and learn well enough and keep your mindset strong enough, eventually that fear will become your greatest strength.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you, if
So
it's phone calling, you'll be a phone calling animal and love to do it because you love the adventure.
Well, think about all the experience that you'll have if you debrief after the calls and ask yourself, what did I do really well and I'll continue to do? And if I had a chance to do it over again, what would I do different? If we don't debrief, we're never going to learn, because we're never going to concentrate on the areas that need improvement.
And sometimes
And
to really do a good debrief, you need to talk to others.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
A good coach, all great golfers, all great tennis players still have a coach because they can get off track. Somebody who helps them figure out what it is they're just missing, even though they're very professional at what they do. So I think that to do that debriefing well, you need to have somebody look at you from the outside, whether it's an internal person or whether it's somebody like you and I who do this professionally.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 22,
Yeah.
put your commitment where your mouth is.
Yeah.
His opening quotes from Carl Jung: "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." So what did you say earlier? We judge ourselves
by our intentions, and other people judge us by our actions.
Yeah.
And I think Einstein, was it Einstein or Ben Franklin, had the quote, well said is better than, or well done is better than well said. And sometimes people talk and they don't do.
Yeah. I think of all the people who wear ribbons. I love the movie stars who wear the "Let's Save the Earth" ribbons as they fly their private jet and have 5 SUVs, but the rest of us are supposed to eat bugs and fly on the back of a commercial. Well, not even fly. We should walk wherever we go or ride our bikes. So let's not just have the ribbon on. Let's do something. Right. And this is where he talks about the company's value statement. And he says accountable leaders never mistake talk for action, and too many companies create a value statement that is really meaningless, because if you have beliefs, there's going to be a cost to them. If you believe that people are your most important product that your company professes, then you better back that up with some kind of action, not just words.
Right.
If quality is always job one, then quality better be the most important thing you do.
Yeah. That takes a commitment to a reputation.
That's right. And I think the point he made is that many companies don't want to follow that up with money. They just want to say we're really good, beat their chest, just like the movie stars. All right, finally, let's go into chapter 23. How big a life do you want to lead? And he talks about the bigger the commitment, the bigger the hammer. So the more commitment you make, the bigger the hammer is. And the analogy he uses is pounding in nails. And if you have a 2-pound hammer, you can pound so much, but if you have an 8-pound hammer, those nails are going to go in a lot faster. And so how much your commitment is the hammer.
Right. This is a great chapter that we're going to talk more about next week, with the topic of goals versus priorities. And there's a lot of things that are important in our lives, but there's very few things that we can truly commit to. And that commitment is, how big is the hammer? How big of a priority is it? How big of a commitment do you want to make to that particular area? So if we separate
what do you let
the two,
distract you, right? What do you let distract you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Is it
always say to people, what's the goal? And then I go, what do you have to do to get there? And then I say, what's going to hold you back from doing what you need to do to get there? And be conscious of them, because you need
right?
to recognize distractions as distractions. You go, that's a
Yeah, the
distraction. Focus.
questions I heard is what do you want? When do you want it? What are you willing to give up to get it? And are you willing to fail?
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you're not
Really.
willing to do those things, then you're going to be in trouble,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's what's necessary for the success you want. You've got to know what you want. You got to know when you want it. You got to put a date on it. And then what are you willing to give up? And are you willing to give up some TV? Or there's a lot of things
Yeah.
we have to give up for success. And he told a number of stories about people who had really given up things for the short term to have the long-term success. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
our next book. So you go out and get this one. It's called What Great Salespeople Do by Michael Bosworth and Ben Zoldan. And Scott and I both have the book. We're excited about getting that started. And it's a lot about story selling, I think.
Yeah. Well, the
So,
byline is the science of selling through emotional connection and the power of story. So there's
power
really
story.
two areas there.
Yep.
I mean,
well, I think that's what they're saying. The stories do give emotional connection. And too many of us are fact-based. I know everything that the widget will do. I know all of its specifications, what size it is, what sizes we can create. But you got to get it to a story that says, hey, this is how we help the company be successful. I'm looking forward to that one. I've wanted to do some things on story selling. I think I do that naturally. I think that's part of how I sell, but I can always make that better. So
yeah. Analogies is another good way of selling, is a comparison.
right.
And that's contrast. So anyway, we'll digress. We'll talk about that more in the book.
So again, the name of the book is What Great Salespeople Do by Bosworth and Zoldan. So go out and pick that up if you're part of the book club. We'll just start that in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
We'll have that link on the show notes, episode 545. So our topic today is questions from our listeners, or questions from questioners.
Or questionable questions, I think, in some cases.
Who's the questioner of the questions? And it's always great when we hear from our listeners and we hear different situations that they're in or different challenges that they have. And sometimes they have external challenges with their prospects or customers, their clients. And sometimes they have internal challenges, which may be with their sales leadership, management, colleagues, and or the folks that are supporting sales. Yeah. They're supposed to be supporting sales. And we look at that going, how does this happen? Because I don't think you're really supporting sales.
Yeah, well, you really made a big sale, and we don't really want to pay you for all that.
So you're going to make more than the president, so we can't have that happen.
That's right. That's right.
Which I'm always, looking at the NFL players out on the field. Guess what? They make more than the coach. It happens in every team. It's not just one or two.
Yep.
It's all of them.
You got to pay for the superstars.
And sales is the engine that pulls the train. I tell you, I mean, you can print 10,000 brochures, put them in the closet, but if the salespeople don't send them out to people who are qualified, interested, and curious on what you do, the brochures have no value. The instrument and the vehicle is the sales department. So we're really grateful to have questions from our listeners. I edited mine down a little bit just to keep them a little bit concise, Bill, and I can go first if you like.
Yeah, go ahead with your first one. Yep.
I got Keith from Trenton, New Jersey. So I always look at that going, this stuff doesn't work in New Jersey. Well, no, it does work in New Jersey. So. I just had my annual review with my sales manager, and he gave me low scores in areas that I didn't know that I was being graded on. This is not fair. And I could just sense the frustration in this email. And he goes, help me wrap, my head around this. I just, what's happening. And I think that the first thing to do is really know what the rules of the game are and what the scorecard is. And when you're starting a new quarter or a new month or a new year, is what does the scorecard look like? How am I being graded? And it's really too bad that the sales manager didn't start out that way by really setting clear expectations, creating the accountability like we've been talking about in the book, and then have some consequences if the expectations are not met by holding accountability. And consequences are opportunities to learn more. They're training opportunities, as the customer service people say, when they follow up on a sale and they didn't have a very good experience. They say, well, this is a training opportunity. You can look at it however you want, and you can do whatever you want, but I'm just sharing you my experience, and good luck on the training opportunity. And I hope the next time I work with you, it's a better experience. So Bill, any advice for Kent
Well,
Keith, on this.
Keith, this is Keith. Yeah, I had a couple of things. First of all, I find this too often, and that is I only get an annual review with my sales manager. So, if you remember the 1 Minute Manager where he talks about bowling with the sheet covering the pins, and you throw the ball down there, and your manager yells, "You got two of them, do better." I think that's happened sometimes. When it's only an annual review, we're not getting enough feedback short enough. And the annual review basically says, here's where you screwed up, be better, with no advice on that. The second thought that came to my mind is perhaps Keith needs to listen better at the last annual review. He may say, I didn't know I was being graded on. My experience is he might have gotten 17 memos about that already and hadn't read any of them or recalled any of them, or since he only had an annual review, he didn't care about them. He just was focused on sales. So make sure that as a salesperson, you're listening and tuned in to what you're going to be graded on. And then his other comment was, "This is not fair." Yep.
Yep, that's right.
You're right. It is not fair. There's a lot of not fair out there. So start to work harder to figure out what your boss needs. Demand more conversations with him during the year, so you don't have to wait a whole year until it's too late to fix something. You should be getting, at the very least, you should be having a half hour a month with the sales manager, but hopefully he's doing some ride along or she's doing some ride alongs with you. That you're spending some time together, you're going to clients together, and you're really learning from that sales manager how to become a better salesperson. And you should be listening to that person to find out what it is you're going to be graded on. So I think it's usually both people, just like a divorce, right? Most people there's two people that are involved in this. And I think you said that Keith should demand more knowledge. If you don't know what you're being graded on, you better start asking better questions, because you're still going to get graded on it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. What do you have, Bill?
All right. I've got from Ethan in Miami, which where I wish I was right now, because we just had about 12 inches of snow here in Minneapolis, and I've shoveled for 3 days in a row, and I'm just about had it with that now. Okay. From Ethan in warm Miami. Our company works very hard to deliver our service properly and stick to the agreements we made in our contracts. This means that we price our services fairly, in your opinion, and don't add extra charges. Recently, there are some new competitors that are undercutting us on price and winning the business, but we know that they will have to increase the pricing structure or lose money. So he's saying that they're undercutting now. They're gonna hit them with extra costs later. All right. How can we convey this issue to prospects without sounding like we're just beating on the competition? All right. So you got a bottom feeder that you're dealing with. They're cutting the prices, and they're gonna. I think I was thinking about this one last night, and I think you need to have a little document, 5 prices you pay for taking the lowest cost provider. And your company should have a document or something that you present early in your sales process, so you get them to start looking for these things. One of the things that you need to do in sales is talk about the strengths that you bring to the marketplace, and that's good. But you also need to talk about and set up barriers for your competition where you know they're weak. And you have to tell your customers or your potential customers, hey, people out there are going to tell you untruths, and here's some major things to look for. Here's what they do. They cheapen out on this thing, and then when it doesn't work, they're going to sell you a better one. And your cost is eventually going to be higher than working with us. And I'm not saying this particular company does that, but here's 5 things that we know you're going to have to pay for, because this is our experience. And so I think that's one good thing. I think the other good thing to do is have testimonials, because what's going to happen is you're going to lose those customers for a contract period, but a lot of them are going to come back to you because they're going to see that they paid the price. So have some testimonials ready from your customers who have left and come back and said, we went for the cheapest price and we paid the price for it. So testimonials, and then you should have some kind of a document that says, here's the price you pay, for going with the lower price.
Right. Yeah. There is a cost to buying on price. And sometimes prospects don't know that because salespeople are the ones that know more about the product or the industry and the process um, that they go through on providing a service, but they don't necessarily know the process that prospects make on that they follow when they make the decision. I think a good question to start off with a prospect that's in this situation is ask the prospect, this other company that you're looking at, what do you suppose their goals are? And to really think about how this other company is positioning themselves in the marketplace. What do you think their goals are? Well, their goals are to get contracts. Okay, so what is your goal? Well, my goal is to be able to have this consistent service, whatever it is, product delivery on a timely basis, et cetera. And then you ask yourself, how do you suppose they're going to be able to follow through on their goal, and you're going to be able to follow through on your goal from them based on their pricing structure? Because there are things that are going to come up where they're going to have to raise the price on things or start imposing terms of the contract that you may or may not understand. And all of a sudden you're locked into something where you now have very limited mobility on different options. I think another good question to ask is if-then statements. So create scenarios in the future that could happen when somebody buys on price. So if this happens, then what will you have to do? And when you bring the future to the present, and this is Covey, now you're getting prospects uncovering a problem that they're going to experience when they buy on price. And now they're going to see, I don't want to go through that problem because I'm buying on price and not the best value. And then they end up going with your service, hopefully. And that's your job of getting on the same side of the table with the prospect, looking at a challenge or goal on the other side of the table, and then working together as to how do you overcome that challenge or meet that goal. So a great situation, very relevant in today's market. And if our listeners want to hear more about this, send it in an email. And if we have enough emails and have some common themes between the emails, Bill and I will do a special show just on this particular topic.
I think one thing that you brought to mind for me too, since you talked about analogies before, I like to make an analogy between our business and their business. So let's say I'm selling to an aluminum extruder. And I'll say, hey, Larry, do you have competition in the aluminum extruding business? Oh yeah, of course we do. Do you have some of them that are much cheaper than you are? Yeah. I said, what do they do to get their product cheaper than yours? What do they lose? What do they give up? And he'll tell me, well, they don't use the highest quality, or they whatever it is. There's something that company's doing to cut the cost down. And I'll say, but you don't do business that way. Why not? And he'll tell me why they don't do, but why they're a quality business. I'll say, you know what? We do the same thing, and we run into the same problem. Some of the competitors that you talk to are going to have a lower price than us, and they're going to do the same set of things your customers do, or your competition does. They're going to cut corners somewhere in order to get that cost down, or they're going to charge you more later. And when we put it into those terms and they're thinking about their competition and how that works, they're usually willing to buy a little bit more, to start thinking about quality and value versus just price. And that's the problem too. All right. Why don't you go to your next one?
My next one is from Jamie in Sedona, Arizona. I didn't think that there were any businesses. Oh, wait a minute. I work remotely and my boss thinks I don't work remotely. How can I fix this? I mean, it seems like it'd be a common theme where sales management thinks that people that work from home don't work from home, and they are, watching TV and doing their laundry and baking cookies. I think this is a common challenge, and unfortunately, it's a misperception. And in reality, I think in some cases when people work from home, they end up working more because the blended boundaries between work hours and personal time is really foggy. I think in this situation, it's looking at what is the scorecard? How is your performance being measured, and really setting that expectation with leadership or your boss. Or when you sense that this is coming up, try to qualify the statements that the boss is saying to the employee when the perception is that they don't work, they're not getting stuff done. So look at timelines, look at expectations, look at the deadlines. Are the deadlines being met? Is the quality there? And what are the expectations of leadership when deadlines are met, the quality is there, and everybody is able to count on this person to follow through on meeting those? And that's a reputation. So sometimes we need to be able to ask ourselves, where's the evidence of this? And when there is no evidence, I think we need to call it out and have that conversation. It's a difficult one, though. What do
I
you
don't have a
think,
lot
Bill?
to add to that. I think,
Yeah.
really understand what the scorecard looks like and hit the scorecard. And then you can say, I did what you told me to do. If you need me to increase that, then tell me that you need me to increase that and we'll make a decision about that. But don't just give me vague, you're not working hard enough, or you're not meeting expectations. If I don't know what the expectations are, I can't meet them. So make sure you get
Right.
those in writing, and that's kind of similar to what Keith was dealing with, right? Except it wasn't a
Hmm.
remote thing.
Right.
His sales manager wasn't giving him good direction, and therefore he wasn't able to make the best decision. So I think your advice is great. All right, from
Right.
Sarah right here in cold Minneapolis.
Wow.
Our marketing team thinks they know all about selling the product, and so they make some crazy claims in ads and emails. Then, when I talk to the prospect, I have to deal with these claims. Our head of sales doesn't work well with the marketing head. That's not unusual.
That's
And
true.
so they won't resolve the problem. What can the sales team do in these situations? Um, well, I think that if you, as a sales team, are running into this over and over again, there's nothing wrong with communicating back to the marketing people directly and saying, this is not true, or this is not what we found true, or please explain to me how we do this. If they're making some kind of claim or saying we can do something, you are the ones. And we're getting that meeting sometimes based on that claim or based on that email that was sent out. And so that's the main thing they want, is that thing that we really maybe can't do. And
Hmm.
so ask the marketing department to show you how they feel that can get done, because you're just gonna have to go around your sales manager and talk to marketing directly, because this is difficult. Obviously, you're trying to deal with it one-on-one with your clients, with your potential customers, but that may be the thing that attracted them in the email or in the ad that says, hey, they can do XYZ, and you're thinking, wow, we can't really do that. You're going to have problems down the road. If you're a professional salesperson, you're looking for somebody long term. So you can't perpetuate the lie and say we can do something we can't do. So you're going to have to nip that in the bud. And if your sales manager won't help you, you're going to have to, as a group, take it to them directly.
Right. I think going to the marketing department and say, we're having some calls and they want to be able to learn more about this study or this research and where this claim came from. Is there something, a white paper that we can share with people that are asking about it? There's also some laws and truth in advertising. And if companies are misrepresenting what they're doing or not being comprehensive about an offering with the details, they're open to liability. And I think with the director of sales talking with other people within the company, that marketing is making claims that are unsubstantial and putting salespeople in a tough position, it's going to have a direct impact on the salespeople's confidence in the company and the product. And sales are going to decrease. Marketing's not going to be able to get the credit for the sales. And hopefully, as it starts to blow up, the finger pointing is going to go to the marketing department making claims that are not true. Unfortunately, this is a 6-month or an 18-month game. And I don't think salespeople want to wait that long. And I don't think company leadership really wants to wait that long, unless the goal of the company is to maximize profit, sell out on a reputation, get contracts in, and then exit at 10 times EBITDA. And there are some companies that want to do that. So they position their whole financial structure based on being acquired and being for sale versus delivering the best value to customers in the marketplace. So conflicting values within company leadership.
All right. Yeah, you got to resolve them. You can't be you're the last person on the information chain, and so I think you better deal with that. All right.
Yeah.
What's your next question?
I got one, Kelly in Spokane, Washington, and the question is really short. What shows are you watching?
Is this your
And
mother? Is this from your mother, or your sister in
I got
Spokane?
20 nieces and nephews, so they might have snuck one in on me, and I didn't know about it because it was under an alias or something. But I have become addicted to Yellowstone, like I think most people. And I can't believe that this show has come out of Hollywood, because the theme of this show is very anti-Hollywood, and I just love the Kevin Costner character. I love Rip. I love Beth. I mean, great show, and I've watched it more than once. So,
Good. Good.
yeah, what are you watching, Bill?
I'm not
Anything
telling
that's
people
fun?
what I'm watching. Who
Okay,
cares
all
what
right.
I'm watching?
I was just interested in somebody wanted to know what I was watching.
All right. From Pat in Fresno. We just met with our director of sales to set our goals for the new year. when we went through the deals, when we went through the deals that were in the funnel, we came up 30% short, even if we closed everything. But they still insisted that we need to hit our goal. Is this fair? We got another fair question here.
Oh,
you had a fair. Is this fair?
Yeah.
And what can we do to deal with this? So he's saying that Pat's saying that they looked at their sales funnel for the year and they don't have every sale already booked for the year. Yes, that's correct. If you did, that would mean you're going to do nothing all year and hope something good happens. Your job in sales is to go out and make up that difference in the year with phone calls and new sales and new prospects. Your sales funnel should be short because you have a whole year to make that up and to make those sales. So that's what I would say, is that you need to go out and do your work. I think a sales funnel that's only 30% short is pretty good. You may not make them all. Maybe you got 50%, but there's some deals out there that you don't know about yet. You need to go out and find out about them. So that's your job. So,
right. I think sometimes there are different things that affect the sale. Supply chain is one issue. I think we dealt with that probably more a year ago than we are right now. It seems to be a problem that's kind of taking care of itself. But, we have to look at how realistic are the goals? What are some of the things that impacted that, and be able to, prepare and manage the things that we can control and concentrate on that versus sometimes freaking out about the things that we cannot control. And that's where we have to be able to have that discernment and that judgment, because that's one thing that's very difficult to train, is good judgment when it comes to salespeople as to how they do time trades, and then on leadership as to what are they really focusing the energy on too.
Yeah. We need to go out and sell something.
Right.
I mean, that's our job. So
Exactly.
Excellent. All right. So that's our questions. If you ever want to have us answer a question, connect with us on LinkedIn, or you can connect with us through the show notes. We're always available. And when we get these questions, we will answer them one-on-one. But we also then will save some of those for the show when we can answer questions together. Any thoughts from you, Scott, to wrap it up?
No, I always love hearing from our listeners. And again, sometimes there's external challenges with customers. Sometimes there's internal challenges with leadership and colleagues, and people that work to support sales. So we love all types of questions. So
most of these seem to be internal this time.
Yeah. Interesting.
My sales director, marketing, my manager, those sorts of things. So,
yeah.
All right. Our golden nugget as we wrap up. This is from Charles Kuhnrant, who is a writer. You have to measure what you want more of. And the allegory to that is from my old boss, John LaBeouf, who said, people do what you inspect, not what you expect. So whatever that kind of goes to Keith in Trenton too. So you do what is inspected, not what is expected. So measure it and you'll get more of it.
Yeah. So what we talked about today is at the show notes, winningatselling.com. This is episode 545. We'll have a link to our current book. I think we just have one more part of that, and then we're going to start the new book. So we'll have a link there as well.
Yep. The book club is finishing up The Theory of Accountability, part 4, chapters 24, 25, and 26, which is the end of the book. And our topic is goals or priorities. Please subscribe, share your podcast with your colleagues and on your social media. Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.